One of the easiest ways to add play value to your doll is to give your doll movement. If you're interested in making your dolls a bit more fun to play with, in this video we're going to discuss 2 ways in which you can make this happen with the use of hinge joints and sewn joints. You can add movement to your dolls as simply as sewing the legs in a way that your doll can sit easily, or you can go as complicated as adding inner joints, using armatures and sculpting the doll over them, etc. As always with doll making, you have to first think of the intended final recipient of the doll and work backwards all the way to the pattern draft table. If the doll is for a child, how can you use design details to encourage more open-ended play without depriving any imaginative energy from the child? If you're making a doll as a collector's item, then how and where should you be adding the movement? These questions and the intended recipients for your doll will have a lot of say in the materials and techniques you use to add movement to your doll. For better arm movement, you can choose to use disc joints, button joints, ball joints, or plain old thread joints. Same with the leg and hip articulation. One of the simplest ways I have found to easily add certain range of motion is to add hinge joints or sewn joints. For the hinge joints, you create a longer piece of fabric without stuffing, usually at the place where the arm or leg attaches to the torso. This acts as a hinge, like on a door, allowing the doll body part to move from X to Y, as the extra length of fabric and the absence of stuffing facilitates this movement. I started using hinge joints on my doll bodies back in 2012 when my daughter requested a doll that felt like a real baby. This is the time when I started experimenting with adding weight in odd places to give the doll that more realistic feeling. If you want to learn how to use hinge joints, you can see this design detail in 3 of my doll making ebooks: the little fig, the baby fig, and the big fig. Each of these will teach you how to use hinge joints in your doll making process. All 3 patterns have different ways of sewing the legs to the torso, so each one will show you a different technique and pattern design. Since none of my patterns actually teach you how to make sewn joints, I will now demonstrate that for you here. A quick and simple way to divide a doll extremity and make it gain some range of motion. Normally, when you make sewn joints, which effectively cuts the body part in 2, I recommend you use slightly longer arm or leg pattern pieces. They may look odd to you when you draft them, as they won't correspond to the more real body proportions, but once you stuff them, you will lose some of that length in the joint. For the sake of symmetry, it is very important that you measure and decide where exactly you're going to make the hand seam before you start stuffing. It is much easier to draw lines when your pattern pieces are lying flat than when they already have stuffing inside. If you are going to make these sewn joints at angles or they will have curves in them, it's important to draw them equally as well. What I normally do is to use wool stuffing up to a certain point, then I pin the wool in place and continue stuffing the rest of the body piece. I do like to stuff firmly up to the point in the seam because I will be making the seam by hand. Usually, rack-style doll makers understuff their dolls, especially when there are going to be these type of sewing joints in the body, as they will be making most of these seams in the sewing machine. I find that with Waldorf-inspired or natural fiber art dolls, the collective mind doesn't enjoy seeing understuffing. Firmly stuffed and pudgy looking is the way to go. Once I have the stuffing in place, I make the seam by hand by going through the body piece and making small stitches. Do not use backstitch, as your seam will have an ugly backside. I recommend you use instead a sort of ladder stitch, just piercing through to the other side and back through the side facing you again. For extra strength, you can pierce from one end to the other, leaving space in between your stitches, and then make another round of stitches on the way back, this time stitching between the first set of stitches. Now you're going to create a ball of wool to place where the knees go. Because you want it to get into all the corners like that. And then keep puff stuffing. Puff stuffing is you grab bits of wool and you stuff them like this. And then you place them inside the leg, and you push them all the way down. You have to be gentle because now you have a seam there made by hand. You have to make sure that you don't stuff too much wool over here or the leg won't sit like that, okay? See, it looks more pleasing than if it was a straight seam. And you can work the stuffing from the bottom of the leg into those wee corners. Just work it down with your fingers. So we continue filling it all the way to the top. Try to end your seams as neatly as possible, making several knots, then a few back stitches, and then sinking the tail within the stuff body part and trimming the threads. That way, everything is tucked away, invisible, and properly finished. I hope this little video offers you food for thought when adding movement to your dolls, and that you try it on your next doll. Please let me know if you have found it useful or if you already use the techniques on your dolls. I will be interested to check them out. Until next time, Fabs.